Hello, this is Maria again, and this is my reflection on the session 10 on peer. A couple things happened as I read description of Illich's conception of peer matching, and it brought to mind two practices that occur today. The first is Meetup, which describes itself as neighbors getting together to learn something, to do something, to share something. And the website's tagline is Find Your People. And so, obviously, if you know about Meetup, any member can start a group, and those who are interested search for the website for groups that meet their interests. And this structure seems to be the same as proposed by Illich to me, where he once said, for one, he said, foresaw the use of computers to match people with similar interests. And two, he explained in a deschooled system, any person has the right to call a meeting of learners, and no one can be compelled to attend a meeting. And through this action, schooling is weakened as power is shifted away from teachers and schools to those who want to learn. So on Meetup, people can participate in as many groups as they want, or as Illich says, the ability of a person to participate simultaneously in several peer groups. So I thought Meetup was one conception of the peer matching and peer, learning that he was describing. The other practice, which I think is much more revolutionary because it disrupts the notion of expertise in learning, is what are called redes de tutorias, or tutorial networks. And they were developed by Gabriel Camara, and they are a learning strategy based on the importance of dialogue and interest-driven learning. And it's been implemented successfully in many rural areas with poor access to quality schooling and with poor student performance in those schools. So, as described in the Redes de Tutoria blog, this model is horizontal, not vertical, and it includes a tutor and a tutoree who work together so that the tutoree learns as much as possible. And that relationship is one that's based on trust and dialogue, which, of course, is in direct contrast to what happens in most schools, where the teacher kind of guides all the students. And with tutorias, the goal is to have students who are tutees eventually become tutors, and they'll be able to work with other students as tutors, and in effect kind of build this grassroots movement of students teaching not only their peers but their families and even teachers. And it's the idea of students sharing their knowledge with others. So I think one thing that is unique and pretty innovative about these tutorias is that they put the learner and the process of learning at the center of education. And it's the focus on relationships that drives the development of a kind of a equitable learning environment where the whole idea of being teacher-centered, of being grade level centered, standardized, all that is kind of erased. And where students are encouraged to take agency for instructional delivery and kind of ownership of their own learning. And this seems to me to be embodiment of the peer learning that Illich described. So let's see, 2 years ago, I experienced a tutoria with a member of my cohort. And so at one point I was the tutor, at one point I was the tutee. When I was the tutor, I was describing to a peer kind of how you do grassroots organizing based upon experience I had in my previous professional life. Some of the things I experienced was I had to really think about where my tutee was coming from, what they knew, the context that they may not understand. And then, of course, I went ahead and described my experience. But then they asked questions that I didn't really expect. And it was through the conversation of us talking together that, one, I learned how to share knowledge and to create a sense of shared learning. And so at first when I started, it was like, oh, I got to be the expert. I have to have all the answers because this is my experience. But as we continued the conversation, it was more he would ask questions. I may not know the answer, and we'd talk about it together. So it was a very kind of low stakes shared learning experience. when I was the 2T, I learned from my tutor how to effectively fire someone. And I chose to work with her because I'd never done that before and thought it would provide me with the fundamentals of how to do that. And she really put in a lot of preparation. She walked me through the process. She had me practice on her. She showed a video of what not to do and of what to do. And I actually remember some of that stuff and will use it, as I grow my professional career. So my experience through this model was positive. I enjoyed it. It was low pressure. It was fun to get together with a peer and talk in an informal and learn in an informal way. And so I think, to tie it back to the reading, although Illich wrote in, the 70s or something like that, his ideas do have a place, I think, in how we're thinking about teaching and learning now, and I would love to see them explored. Perhaps not exactly in the way that he said, but it's already happening, like I said, with Meetup and with Tutorias. So, good talking to you, and till next time.